Hi, I'm Laura Lawton with Lawton Printing Services. Welcome to Candidate Confidential. We're happy to have you join us. We're happy to join Spokane Talks Online for this important civic service. The Lawton team has been serving the Inland Northwest for over 77 years. What keeps us motivated is the continuous evolution of our company to better serve the clients we work with every day. We are also fortunate to have so many people willing to step up to serve our communities. Being a candidate and civil servant is too often a thankless job. I know you join me in thanking these forward-thinking individuals for their dedication to us all. With that, I thank you for taking the time to learn more about the people who want to lead our communities. Enjoy the debate and give Lawton a call for any of your marketing, printing, or mailing needs. Thank you.
On behalf of Spokane Talks Online, welcome to Candidate Confidential. I'm your host, John McCallum, and I'm pleased to be joined tonight by two candidates for Medical Lake City Council position number 5, Gary Plumlee and Ted Olson. And we're going to be talking about some of the issues that are happening out there in Medical Lake and around. But first, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back and get to the issues.
Proposition 2 is not about politics. It's about protecting Spokane's economy.
I'm opposed to Proposition 2.
I'm opposed to Prop 2.
I'm opposed to Proposition 2.
Proposition 2 just doesn't make sense.
I am opposing Proposition 2.
I'm against Proposition 2.
I'm opposed to Proposition 2.
I'm opposed to Prop 2 because we have to protect Spokane's economy.
All right, as promised, we are back to Candidate Confidential. We're going to take a look at some of the issues. The first one up on the plate is law enforcement and some crime questions. And Gary, we're going to go to you first. One of the issues there in Medical Lake is the talk around that maybe there might be an interest in getting the police department back. Getting out of the contract with Spokane County Sheriff's Office, which I think you've been under for about 5 or 6 years. Tell me your thoughts on that.
You know, first I just want to thank you for being here, John, and moderating this debate. We all really appreciate that. Police in Medical Lake is a hotbed issue right now. If you go on Facebook and watch the community forums, that it's one of the only things that gets talked about anymore. We recently had a robbery at Denny's, and people felt that the response time was a little slow. When you look at the deputy sheriff's log for that day, it looks like he responded in plenty of time. That being said, personally, I do think Medical Lake does need its own police department again. I don't think it's going to be something that occurs overnight. It's going to take a couple of years. Finding the right candidates and getting them to stay is going to be the largest issue. We as a city got rid of the police department because we couldn't afford it anymore. And we were struggling to keep good people in good positions. In order to fix that, it's going to be time consuming. But I'm willing to look at it.
Okay, great. Ted.
Thank you, John, for hosting this. This is an honor and a privilege. My first venue into public office, or at least an attempt to. Since I'm newly retired, I'm going to have the time to do that. So, depends on who you talk about it to in Medical Lake, whether crime is a problem or the lack of it is. We have a problem with law enforcement. Either way, at this point in time, it's a moot issue because the contract is up right now for Spokane County to become sheriff, and they're going to have to renew the contract. That is going to be decided in a 2-year period. It's going to give us plenty of time to really get the concise feeling of the community and see how people really want. Because if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, I'm going to vote whatever my peers tell me to vote. You know, I'm going to go out there and talk to everybody throughout the city. If they want a police department, that's what I'll bring back, knowing that I'm only one person on a city council of 7.
Well, real quick on the follow-up, since you are in the community, both of you gentlemen, do people come up to you on the streets or whatever gathering you're at and say, hey, can we have a police department back?
Yes, they do. They've come up to me and they've asked that, and it's been a hot button issue on both sides. I've seen people that say, well, we had that old police department, and there was so much problem with the old police department. We don't want that to happen anymore. Personally, this is a day of instant communication and social media. That stuff just isn't going to fly anymore. Everybody's going to be accountable whether they want to be or not. On the other side of the coin, there is a resource officer that comes to the schools and spends almost all day there. We didn't have that before. This is very nice, especially in light of what happened just in Freeman just 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So we've got both sides of the issue. Some people have said, I haven't seen so many policemen around Medical Lake ever. And other people say, where are they when they need you?
Right. Gary, how about you?
Yeah, I think the county sheriff is doing a really great job for what they have available. Budget-wise, we're only budgeted 2 deputies throughout the day. So that leaves, obviously, some want for service. You're never going to have the perfect solution. I've definitely heard from both sides of the issue with people in Medical Lake. There are people who definitely do not want to bring back the Medical Lake Police Department. They like the county services and they think they work just fine. There's also the side of it that people do want the Medical Lake to bring back the police department. I think in the end it is really going to be up to the people of the city on whether or not we bring back the Medical Lake Police Department. And as Ted said, we are only one voice on the council. It's going to take the entire council and the mayor all involved together to bring back the police department. So in the end, it will be the people's decision. And in order to make that happen, it's going to be time consuming. There's going to be a couple years where we're still with the sheriff if we did opt to go back to the police department. And I think that would be okay. I think I've never had an issue with the sheriffs in Medical Lake. I've never had any problems. The one time I have had to call them in the past. So I think for now, while we work on the idea of getting community support on whether or not to bring back the police department, the county sheriffs are going to do a fantastic job whether we decide to move in a different direction or not.
Okay, great. Issue 2, which is interesting enough, utilities and taxes, water and fire. You can't get more disparate than that, I think. Also been some talk about a possible full-time fire department. I've been here at the Free Press for 17 years. It's always been pretty much a volunteer department. Ted, thoughts on trying to move in the direction at least of some kind of maybe full-time department?
Okay. Really, your subject matter was utilities, and there's really not much to be said about the utilities in Medical Lake, personally. Any problems that arise are handled by the city crew.
Right.
They're very apt and they know how to do it. And having worked in maintenance for over 30 years myself, I'm well versed in the field and understand how projects, workloads, abilities, weather, and emergencies play into play on a day-to-day basis.
Sure.
Our city handles the water and the wastewater only.
Right.
And by the way, I've been a licensed wastewater operator for 35 years. The other utilities are contracted out.
Right. Sewer and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. We take care of our own sewer and our own water. The garbage and, of course, the other utilities are farmed out. Mm-hmm. So we do have problems with the parks and the roads and the walkways. So they need more attention. But I don't think that's an issue that needs to be brought up as far as a campaign issue.
Okay.
As to the fire department.
Yes.
There are challenges there. And earlier this summer, I and 2 citizens interviewed the fire chief and the assistant. It would have gone longer, but there was a fire call.
There you go.
So, and that's what happens in this small town like that. You can't just conduct an interview because you hear the bell ring and you got to get there. That's what you got to do. But per our conversation, the fire department themselves would like to have a chief and an assistant there full time. What that would do is give us instant coverage to start with. And you'd have somebody right there handling things. And also, the equipment would be up to date There'd be air in the tires and the oil would be changed and everything would be pretty and ready to go. Instead of having the problems that they've had before with some of the EMT equipment. So again, whatever the public wants, I will forward the suggestion to the city council. And as Gary pointed out, we are just one person on a council of 7 in a strong mayor form of government.
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, same tact, I guess.
Yeah, I actually attempted to have a sit down with the fire chief last week as well. And as I was walking in the door rolled up and the fire truck rolled out. So we haven't had a chance to sit down. I did get a chance to speak with Doug Ross, the city administrator, in regards to the funding of the fire department. The city is looking into implementing at least one full-time position for the next budget year. What that would mean is, as Ted said, coverage. It's going to allow somebody to be there to ensure that things are taken care of 24/7 within reason. Obviously, somebody can't work 24/7 every day, but it would give us a better coverage option than we've got now. I do like the idea of implementing a stronger fire department, one that has more of a full-time feeling. One of the ideas that's been tossed around is a residency program, which would allow students in fire sciences from universities around the area to serve on the Medical Lake Fire Department as sort of a firefighter in training while they're doing their fire sciences degree. The issue that runs behind that, we don't have the residency area for them to sleep. So really, in order to build a better fire department, it's going to require either a new fire station or remodeling of the old structure into something that meets current code. And that's all doable. It again, time and agreement of the population in the area. Community involvement is really the backbone of any services that the city provides to the people of Medical Lake. Without the community's involvement, you can't figure out what their wants are. So, in order to do that, having more voices that are willing to get out and listen to the public and then bring those thoughts back to the council meetings is going to be very important in the upcoming years while we work on these issues of bringing back the bringing back the police department, and implementing a more full-time fire department. As for the water, there's really not a lot more we can do. The state doesn't allow us to build any more wells. We have 14 hookups remaining. What that means is in the city proper of Medical Lake, the city is allowed to build 14 more hookups to the wells before we can no longer meet the 1,000 gallons per day that the city engineer has set as the level of service. In order to go over that, we would have to find another way to get water. One of the ideas they're working on right now is buying water from the city of Spokane. I know they're currently working on getting plans together for a pump that would allow us to purchase water from the city of Spokane and have it pumped into the system. It hasn't been implemented as of yet that I'm aware of, but it is something they're working on. And then again, the rest of the utilities are on a contract base and can only be renegotiated as those contracts expire. None of those are expiring this year, so they haven't really cropped up. But I will freely admit to not having a large issue with what I pay for garbage, $30 a month, as opposed to Airway Heights, which is almost $80 a month.
Right.
So.
I think they were there with Sunshine as well, too, or whoever the
they are with Sunshine.
Right.
And they're double plus extra on what we pay for the same service.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the final issue here, which is it's on the sheet here as investment and vision. But as I was telling you before, in a recent issue of the Free Press, there was a story about Medical Lake soon going over the 5,000 mark in population. That would be a first. That carries with it some new challenges for the city. You get thrown into a larger pool in competition for grants. So, Gary, I mean, what do you see? How do you see that impacting the city, and how do you see it moving forward?
Only 24% of our property taxes that we pay every year come back to the city. The rest of it funds the county, libraries, conservation, things like that. So there's not a large sum of money that the city has to use every year. We, as a city, depend on these grants from the state to fund some of our larger projects. This year, we were lucky enough to be awarded a grant in, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name of it, but we were awarded a large grant for street repair because of the rough winter that we had, and it allowed us to fix quite a few of the potholes around town.
Probably a TIB grant,
I think that's what it was. Thanks, John.
Transportation Transportation Improvement
Yeah.
Board, yeah. I can say it.
We were awarded one of those this year because we had applied for it and we fell under the parameters required by the state to award that. And it allowed us to fix some of the potholes. I know specifically there were some large potholes cropping up near the railroad tracks on Stanley that were cut out completely and fixed in their entirety, which is fantastic. And that follows the point of, because we don't have a lot of money coming in, the city has to prioritize what they spend that money on. That leads to growth issues. The city can only grow so much. Personally, I like the small town feel that we have there in Medical Lake. I don't think it needs to get much larger. I would like to see revitalization of the downtown area as opposed to lateral growth of the city itself. And there's a lot we can do about that. I unfortunately don't have any great ideas on that. Really, that's kind of the end of it.
Okay, Ted?
I came at this as a different approach. I looked at your questions, and I saw investment. Number one, the name of the city is Medical Lake. Medical Lake itself is dying right now as we speak. We have aerators that aren't doing their job. The lake had a liner put in it in the late 1970s. And that's like saying that the roads were fixed 40 years ago. It just doesn't fit the bill anymore. There's so many things that's wrong. I was at a few weeks ago at a Reimagine Medical Lake meeting, and that was at the Pizza Factory, which is a good place to eat, by the way, and meet people. So that's my little plug for them. And the businesses in
I'm sure they'll
Lake.
Appreciate that.
Well, I hope they do. When I was there, I saw a presentation by Dave Klutz, and he owns a company called Lakeland Restoration Services. Now, he has fixed lakes and streams all over the western United States over the last 40 years. And he explained in full what he did with Silver Lake and got that back into shape, and basically an overview of what he's done, everything, including the prices. So in his concise overview, he handled everything very nicely and answered all the questions that came up. It's quite affordable. And while I was on Silver Lake myself, I was instrumental in getting these things started back in 2006. So I knew that the lake was going to die, and there's nothing worse than a lake that's going to die. There goes your property values. Everything is going to go down if you have that problem. Back this up, after the last city council meeting, in which we both attended, if I remember right, there was a gentleman who had concerns about Medical Lake and wondered how come the fishing was down. After the meeting, he talked with Gary and I and another gentleman, and he had some real hard issues. He had a game department fella coming up to him and said, "Man, Medical Lake is the worst lake that I stock." And he said, when this employee went to the city fathers, it was just met with disdain. They thought that they put a liner in the lake 40 years ago, and that's going to take care of things.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't do it.
No, it doesn't.
So I tell you these things to be aware that Medical Lake itself, Medical Lake needs help. And we as citizens must give Medical Lake, we must give them Lakeland Restoration Services, at least give them a chance to give us what's wrong with the lake.
How do you fund that?
That is very, very affordable. I'm sure that he would come out and give us a super good deal on just telling us what's wrong as an overview. He's been doing it for 40 years. He's not going to rip anybody off. People are going to be really upset. And after you get your lake fixed, it's a matter of maintenance after that.
Sure. And then, Medical Lake is kind of the jewel of the city.
That's right.
But Medical Lake in the past has benefited from being in the smaller pool of a grant pool. Mm-hmm. So moving into a larger grant pool because of population size is going to affect that to some degree. So how would you deal with that?
It is. And when we get into that, normally whenever you work on a lake, you just have the residents around the immediate lake are the ones that fund it.
LID.
Right, exactly. Instead of that, since everybody utilizes the lake, have it citywide. And that's going to distribute the wealth or the cost throughout the whole city. And that way they're all going to feel like they've done a part to save our lake, which is our namesake.
So it sounds like maybe doing a little bit more maybe a little less reliant on outside funding, more reliant on inside funding a little bit.
Yes, for something that has a direct effect. We don't like spending taxes on something that has to do on the other side of the state, obviously.
Sure.
If we can see something that has a direct result and helps us out, then I can see me dipping into my pocketbook a little bit just so we can have it and we can see the result right there.
Okay.
It's painted with a wide brush.
Gary, what are your thoughts on something like that?
You know, I think that's something that I don't know a lot about. In regards to the way Ted puts it, is the lake is dying.
Mm-hmm.
What I got out of the city council meeting from the city administrator is that they had just had a couple biologists out, had run all the numbers, and the numbers were looking great. Obviously, as I said, I don't know a lot about that. It's something I'm going to have to do some more research on before I can form an actual opinion on the matter. Mm-hmm. That being said, I do agree with Ted in the idea that the lake is kind of the jewel of Medical Lake. I know I like swimming in the lake. I've swam from one side to the other a couple times this summer. My wife thought it was a terrible idea, but I thought it was fun. It's nice having a lake that close where you can go cool off if you like.
Sure.
Waterfront Park is another aspect of that. A lot of people use Waterfront Park. As far as being able to fund conservation efforts like that, I think a majority of that money would need to come from the state level, from the conservation efforts in the forms of grants and things like that. And again, us moving into the 5,000 population mark is going to inhibit the ability to gather those grants.
Okay, well, gentlemen, we're closing in on our final thoughts, and I really appreciate you guys being here tonight. Ted, if you want to kick off a minute or so of your final thoughts.
Sure, I had a lot more on the
I'm sure
on the other stuff, but we are under the constraints of time. I understand that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I've lived in Eastern Washington my entire life. I've been in Medical Lake at a Medical Lake address since 1993. Worked locally. My kids went to school here. I've got grandkids that are going to school in the Medical Lake school system, and I drive a school bus around town. So together with my wife Connie, we've been in town for 2 years, and we're raising our son Tyler together. I'm a deacon at Medical Lake Community Church, very active in the church, proud to be a Christian. And after working for the public for over 37 years, I retired. Before I worked for the state and for the city of Pomeroy, I farmed for a decade. So I've been in and out of the workings of, I understand how these things work, who can do what and who can't do what, and how to make things work. When I was with the state and CSS, I was very active in the ASME union, and what that did, holding positions statewide and locally, it sharpened my communication and my ability to organize and to get the word out. So it was my got to look at my notes here. Negotiating skills. That's what I was looking for. But I've been on 3 HOA boards since 1994, and am a member of Reimagine Medical Lake. I have attended nearly all the city council meetings over the last year and a half. Probably have a better attendance record than most of the city councilmen, because they've missed a few that I know of. And finally, because I'm retired from full-time work, I'm ready, willing, and able to put my whole all into this. I'm able to get things done, and I will listen to people because I'm one voice. And I want to thank you for taking the time here, John, for doing this, and thank you for Spokane Talks. This has been an excellent opportunity for both Gary and myself to express our opinions and have a voice.
Gary.
You know, I was born and raised in Spokane. I went to high school local, joined the Marine Corps, a couple of combat tours. When I got home from being in military service, it really dawned on me that how we live our lives is involved with government at all levels. My wife and I bought a place in Medical Lake because we liked how the city was set up. We liked the small town atmosphere. We love the people that were around all the time. And I love that our community gets out and is involved. We had our first child in June, so we plan on raising our family in Medical Lake and being there for many years to come. I want to help Medical Lake become a great city. It's a fantastic place to live. I love raising my family there. I love spending time there. And I think I can help the people get a voice in city government in order to make sure that our city is what we want it to be. I want to thank you for being here, John, and thank you to Spokane Talks and everybody involved with this effort for putting this together. It really is quite helpful in getting recognition for some of the smaller towns out there.
Well, Gary, Ted, I would like to thank you two for being here as well. And I would like to thank you guys for, stepping up and running for office. It's not an easy thing to do. You're going to put yourself out there. It will be a demand on your time, and not everybody wants to do it. And I deeply appreciate the fact that you're willing to take part in the democratic process and run for office and to come here and speak with us. So on behalf of Spokane Talks, thank you and good luck, and thank you.